Welcome back to Watch the Booker Man and to episode number 46 of Paul Heyman's TNA 2010. We are, as of this show, just 10 days away from Bound for Glory 10-10-10, the biggest show in TNA history. We are, as always, in the Impact Zone as we continue hopefully what has been an enjoyable build to the pay-per-view so far. And of course, these last 2 weeks we have to turn it up another notch and make sure that all the storylines have as much heat as possible, and more importantly, people are interested to see what goes down on that show. And we begin with a significant match in the Knockouts division, initially agreed last week as an unofficial number one contendership match, now confirmed by Paul Heyman that the winner will face Awesome Kong, and we see an even match for 11 minutes and 10 seconds, the turning point coming when Alyssa Flash, Jimmy Jacobs and Mischief all come out to the top of the ramp. This does distract Tara, and while they don't actually get involved, obviously they've got their issues with Tara, but they don't really make clear why they're even out here. Nonetheless, Sarah Del Rey is able to pick up the victory with a Royal Butterfly. She puts in a 54 performance. Tara unfortunately off a game. This could have easily been in the 60s had Tara not been off a game, but it's an okay match and it advances two storylines, with our number one contender being confirmed as Sarah Del Rey. Partially, I don't know if you could call it an assist, but the presence of the New Age certainly took Tara off her game, and following the match, Sarah Del Rey looks to Alyssa Flash and Mischief, who have now come further down the ramp. She's surprised to see them. This isn't something that she's been in on with the New Age. Despite the win, she actually seems a little bit annoyed about their involvement. She wanted to prove that she was better than Tara. It wasn't like Tara was in control of the match when they came out. For a moment though, it looks as though Jimmy Jacobs is about to lead the Knockouts Tag Team Champions towards her. Perhaps he has some kind of proposal for her. When the music of Awesome Kong hits, all three women know all about her. Kong comes down to the ring and the New Age quickly get out of the way. If there was anything with them and Sarah Del Rey, it quickly evaporates as they don't want anything to do with Awesome Kong. The Knockouts title match is set for Bound for Glory, and the champion goes face to face with the challenger Sarah Del Rey. In 10 days time, she will face Awesome Kong on 10-10-10. Not that good of a segment, losing heat to both storylines, but we are getting that first moment there of Sarah Del Rey, Awesome Kong going nose to nose, and I think that is going to be a really good Knockouts Championship match. Hopefully the best women's match that we've done so far on that big stage. We then turn attention to the main event of Bound for Glory, Paul Heyman addressing viewers about that match between AJ Styles and Kurt Angle. He talks about his 10 months as part of the company and the time that he was watching TNA before he joined the company, and even from the outside he knew that he was watching the two best wrestlers on the planet, AJ Styles and Kurt Angle. Paul says that he isn't alone in this assessment and says that this isn't just hype or hyperbole. He puts them over as two of the most highly regarded wrestlers in the world, within the industry and by the fans. AJ is the most incredible athlete that he has ever seen inside a ring, while Kurt Angle is the greatest technical wrestler that anybody has ever seen. Coming back to the young, hungry and aggressive tagline, Paul explains that it was never for 1 second his intention to try and push Kurt Angle out of TNA. In fact, quite the opposite. He wanted to push him to continue to raise the bar. He knew that Kurt could carry this company on his shoulders, and his body of work in 2010 proves that he has done just that. He stepped up to the challenge. Some might say he rose to the bait, but Paul is making it clear that this was always his intention. He was never trying to get under the skin of Kurt Angle. He just wanted to motivate him. On 10-10-10, it is AJ Styles' job to try and represent the young, the hungry, the aggressive alternative as he looks to wrestle that mantle back from him and leave as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Paul adds that it is so rare to see two generational talents in their prime at the same time in the same company, and both at the very, very top of their game. He name checks Flair and Steamboat, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. That's why there was no doubt in his mind this match had to main event the biggest show of the year. And perhaps looking back to that Bret and Shawn Michaels match, while he doesn't state it, that is clearly the influence as he announces the stipulation for the third match in this series. They've both beaten each other once. In the past, they've gone to time limit draws. It's been proved over the years that these two are so inseparable, which is why in the main event of Bound for Glory, Kurt Angle will defend his World Heavyweight Championship against AJ Styles in an Iron Man match. So confirming a huge stipulation in a successful segment from Paul Heyman, advancing the storyline, not adding heat to it, which probably shows that it's already pretty high there up in the heat stakes, so that's good to see as well. We then head to the interview area, perhaps going back after a break, as Beer Money are questioned on their victory over Team 3D last week. James Storm puts over the fact that they are now confirmed to be taking part in the Full Metal Mayhem, having beaten two of the innovators of that match type in Brother Ray and Brother Devon. Robert Roode adds that Team 3D can raise Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin's hands all they want, but it doesn't change the fact that Beer Money are the only team walking into Bound for Glory who have been in a Full Metal Mayhem before. This is a first for Shelton, this is a first for Charlie, and this is a first for the Motor City Machine Guns. On 10-10-10, those two teams are walking into the unknown, whereas Beer Money are ready for anything that match will throw at them. Robert Roode also references his match tonight, where he will face Charlie Haas and Chris Sabin in a three-way. That is their first opportunity to show that Beer Money are levels ahead of any other team in this division. A decent promo, not much more to say about it. Loses heat to the storyline because of how good that match was last week. We then get the second match of the night, and Amazing Red and Sarita defeat Frankie Kazarian and Tracy Brooks in 6 minutes and 34 when Sarita pins Tracy Brooks with a flying crossbody. The note there is that Tracy Brooks was the weak link, and essentially that was the story of the match too. Kazarian and Amazing Red were on an even footing, but it was clear throughout the match that when Sarita got in there with Tracy Brooks, she was on another level to her. We see that in the performances, a 52 from Sarita, a 39 from Tracy Brooks, but advancing the storyline, and LAX getting a nice momentum boosting victory in a 57 rated match. Following their victory, Amazing Red and Sarita stand tall together in the ring. Christopher Daniels and Matt Morgan now breaking the brief peace treaty between the two teams. None of the other guys were at ringside, and now they come out to back up their Bad Influence stablemates. Quite predictably, Hernandez and Homicide are out to even the numbers straight away, and Bad Influence back up off the ramp. They don't want to get into another brawl like they did last week. Homicide then takes a microphone and makes the challenge official. These guys have been at each other's throats for pretty much the entire year in one way or another. Amazing Red, Hernandez, Homicide and Sarita want Bad Influence at Bound for Glory. Wasting no time, Christopher Daniels takes a microphone, straight to the point. He accepts. That match is confirmed. The two warring sides in their final battle at Bound for Glory. Speaking of which, we head back to the office of Paul Heyman, and Tara is shown to be furiously confronting the matchmaker, protesting the involvement of the New Age in her number one contendership match earlier on in the night. Paul Heyman sympathises with the former Knockouts champion, but says that Sara Del Rey is getting the title shot. That was an official number one contendership match, but he does have a compromise. She has an issue with the New Age, and it seems like they have an issue with her judging on earlier tonight and what's gone on over the last few months. They think that she's a has-been, that she'll never reach those heights that she previously reached, but she's beaten both of them within the last 6 weeks. Heyman tells Tara to find herself a partner, and since it's gold that she wants so desperately back around her waist, then how does a shot at the Knockouts Tag Team Championships at Bound for Glory sound to her? So it might again not be a good sign that we don't have a ready-made tag team, but I think that the storyline here and what I have planned for Tara's partner supersedes the fact that we don't necessarily have a built-up team to face the New Age, and I think that it's really going to be worth it. While Tara's clearly not over her previous issue, still disappointed to not get the shot at Awesome Kong, she likes this idea and leaves the office on her search for a partner, gaining heat to the New Age's next target storyline, and again confirming, albeit with a unknown participant so far, Tara and somebody will face the New Age at Bound for Glory. Returning to the ring, Jay Lethal comes out and puts over the fact, recapping last week where James Mitchell told him to meet him in the ring. He understands that this is all about control for Mitchell, but there's nothing else he can do. He has to do whatever it takes to get his girlfriend back. James Mitchell comes out alone. There's no Abyss and no Maria in sight, and Jim gets in Jay Lethal's face. He's trying to goad him to hit him, He is already under Lethal's skin. However, as Jay Lethal winds up to take the shot, Jim warns him to think about his pretty little girlfriend before he does that. This is yet another display of manipulation and control, and Mitchell explains they have all the power, or more specifically, he does. Jim then laughs and asks if Jay now sees the difference between Abyss with and without his father. We've seen a more sadistic side. He went through all the therapy with Dr. Stevie, which obviously didn't help. Jay Lethal has now heard enough and demands to know why Jim's here, what he wants from him. James laughs and says that Abyss wants what Jay took from him. Bound for glory, you bring the title, I'll bring the girl. He wants the global championship on the line in the signature match of the Monster Abyss, the Monsters Ball. Jay Lethal wastes no time, despite this clearly stacking the deck against him, the match type that is made for Abyss. But Lethal accepts, warning that if either of them lay a finger on Maria before then, he won't stop until the monster stops breathing. He's not going to lose his global championship, but he is going to get Maria back. He is fired up and determined, and while it's not a great segment, I do think it does advance the storyline well, and we're really getting a Bound for Glory card coming together here. Like the last 3 segments, I think, have all confirmed matches, so very, very quickly getting what I think is a brilliant card. Before the third match of the night, the commentators discussed the X Division extravaganza, which was announced by Larry Sweeney last week. Morrow explains that after pre-recording a promo for Explosion this week, Larry Sweeney forgot to remove his lapel mic. He then introduces leaked audio of Larry bemoaning the idiotic match type that Paul Heyman had come up with, claiming that nobody could turn this chicken shit into chicken salad. He would then go on to complain about the unfair treatment of the X Division champion Kazuchika Okada. We then come back and Taz says that other than Larry Sweeney and Kazuchika Okada, everybody else thinks this idea is great and are fully on board with the 10-man Falls Count Anywhere match for the X Division Championship at Bound for Glory. So they're kind of having a laugh at the fact that Larry Sweeney's been caught out last week. He put over that this was a great match type and he was fully on board. His job is, of course, to promote this match, but the idea of Larry Sweeney, who puts on this front, has this great relationship with Paul Heyman, and then behind the scenes, he's actually, as we'd expect, pretty pissed off about this match. We then get a preview of the X Division extravaganza with 2 of the biggest names confirmed for the match so far, Paul London and Brian Kendrick, defeating Austin Creed and Kazuchika Okada in 10 minutes and 6 seconds, Paul London pinning Austin Creed, and that's a key part really. Kazuchika Okada is protected throughout the course of the match by Larry Sweeney really. He wants Austin Creed in the match more, under the guise of wanting to tune him up and get him sharp to face these guys at Bound for Glory, but really this is to keep Okada out of the firing line. Underwhelming performances really from the 2 members of Larry Sweeney's group, while Paul London and Brian Kendrick putting in the segment ratings we expect of them. The good news is that it gains heat to the storyline. Match is probably the best way to go about it in terms of this storyline when I actually think about it. And after the match, Larry Sweeney regroups with his clients in the ring as the hooligans go up the ramp to celebrate, crossing paths with London and Kendrick. Generation Me then come down to the ring. Nick and Matt say that it doesn't matter whether Larry likes the match or not, because they're here to tell him that they're both in the X Division extravaganza. Larry protests that his words have been creatively edited and taken out of context, and there is no doubt that he is fully on board with this match. What's more, he doesn't give a damn about Generation Me being in the match, since they've got no chance of leaving with a title. If he'd seen anything in them, he'd have signed them up already, because they've been begging him to do so. Nick and Matt laugh this off, then look at each other, shrug, and hit Sweeney with a double super kick. Sweeney is down, Gen Me rolling out of the ring before Creed and Okada can do anything, but we see at the top of the ramp the hooligans are impressed with the actions. Nick and Matt will have the opportunity to show their high-flying abilities in this Falls Count Anywhere match. Returning to the second hour of Impact, Tara is shown in the Knockouts locker room, and she addresses all the Knockouts who are there at once, asking who wants to step up and face the New Age at Bound for Glory. She knows that everybody hates this group and are sick of them running roughshod over the Knockouts, so who wants to stand up? There's then an awkward silence, only broken as Madison Rain steps forward. She explains the feeling in the dressing room, and there's quite some antipathy towards Tara after she claimed last week that she was head and shoulders above everybody else. That got the other Knockouts talking, and she's not popular right now. That doesn't bother Madison though, she's not popular either, and since she was the one who beat Tara for the Knockouts Championship, who better? She's in, she wants to be Tara's partner. Unfortunately, the only woman who wants to team with Tara has no interest in teaming with her. She then turns to look around at the rest of the locker room, her history with ODB ruling out her and her proteges. Hamada and Wilde indicate that they're working with each other, it wouldn't be right for them to break off. Of course, the beautiful people are already in a tag team, and Jazz is out of the question. Frustrated with no one to turn to, she looks to Madison Rayne, shakes her head, there is no chance she'll team with her, and leaves the locker room. So Tara very much isolating herself with her words last week when she had her eyes set on the Knockouts Championship, which makes it now difficult for her to find a partner. We'll see how that develops before Bound for Glory. AJ Styles is then interviewed in a sit-down interview by Mike Tenay, going in depth on his journey to the top of TNA after years of being on the brink of being the top guy, of everybody telling him that it was his breakout time. He was finally positioned to carry the company as 2010 started. He had a great run with a title after winning it at No Surrender 2009, but at Lockdown, he lost it to Kurt Angle. That can happen. He puts the champion over. There's very few other people who he sees on his level, but Kurt Angle, he can have no complaints about losing to him. That's just the nature of being in this business. But seeing Kurt with that title for all this time, the 6 months that followed, that feels like a personal slight. This is his championship, this is his company, he should be the one carrying that flag. Paul Heyman coming in was supposed to see him solidify his position. He was told that he was everything that Paul Heyman wanted, but things don't always go how you plan them. Styles then goes on to talk about his few months at home after Slammiversary and the perspective it gave him. God and his family come before everything else for AJ Styles, but every single second he spent away from TNA made him realise how much he loves this place. Competing in these 6 sides is what AJ Styles was born to do, and at Bound for Glory we will see a hungrier, more aggressive AJ Styles than we've ever seen before. He isn't going to stop until he has the World Heavyweight Championship. A really good 85 rated segment, AJ Styles masterfully improvising. And we really wanted this to be the in-depth look at AJ Styles' motivation going into this match. He's had that time away, he's had a few bumps on the road. It was supposed to be his year, he was supposed to be the guy, but at Bound for Glory in the main event, he has the chance to prove that he is that. We then get an extremely short 4th match of the night, Desmond Wolfe defeating Curtis Jones in 1 minute and 14 seconds. He wins by submission via the London Dungeon, perhaps sending a message there. Normally we've seen him win by the Jawbreaker Lariat or the Tower of London. He's specifically gone for a submission here to send a message to Bryan Danielson. A really good performance from Desmond Wolfe in a decent match considering it was only 1 minute. And after the match he takes a microphone telling Bryan Danielson that that will be him at Bound for Glory. He vows to beat Bryan in under a minute. He adds that when he came to TNA, he was sure he'd finally seen the back of the American Dragon. At Bound for Glory, he will finish the job himself and send Bryan Danielson back to obscurity, advancing the storyline. He did well without a script, but it's not that great. We then get an immediate response from Bryan Danielson, who is approached for his reaction to Wolfe's words. He remains calm and looks to be enjoying how wound up Wolfe is about this whole thing. He says that he always knew they'd meet each other somewhere down the line, he just didn't think that it'd be so soon. Bryan Danielson says that he can't wait to be back in the ring, a ring where he can show how aggressive and violent he is. Desmond Wolfe sees this match as a duty. Bryan is looking forward to it. He can't wait to make his TNA debut at Bound for Glory, and it's not that great of a promo from him. It's probably fair that in 2010 Bryan Danielson wasn't as good at promos as he became, and one thing I'm really trying to sort of build into his character here early on is that he's calm and he's quite an affable chap in general. Obviously he's been heel at times, but when he's been a face he's been a really likeable character, and that's what we want to do. We want to have him as a calm, cool character outside of the ring, to contrast that with when we finally see him at the ring at Bound for Glory. People who don't know Danielson that well, they might be in for a bit of a surprise. With the 2 men scheduled to appear in the ring up next, a video package looks back at the history between Bobby Lashley and Samoa Joe. Last year at Bound for Glory, they went one-on-one with a controversial referee stoppage, deciding the match in Bobby Lashley's favour. Samoa Joe didn't forget about this, and Bobby Lashley returned 2 weeks ago to ignite their differences. Tonight, the 2 men will meet in the middle of the ring. but there is a specific caveat going into what is a really good 83 rating, and that is that when Bobby Lashley and Samoa Joe make their way to the ring, they are each personally escorted by a security team, kept physically apart. After what happened last week, the two just get the chance to exchange barbs on the microphone. Lashley explains why he came back. Samoa Joe has been talking all year like he believes he's on Bobby's level, and he sees that as an insult. Even worse, some of the fans believe it. The commentators try and spread the idea that Samoa Joe is one of the toughest, most physical athletes in the business. Lashley's heard Joe's excuses for the last year, and he wants to shut him up for good. No doubt this time he is going to make Samoa Joe physically tap out so that there can be no excuses. Joe comes back saying that it isn't going to happen unless Lashley has a crooked referee in his pocket again this year. Lashley retorts that Hebner's actions were the only thing between Samoa Joe losing a match last year and Lashley finishing his career. As the argument continues, Joe taking shots at Bobby Lashley's dual sports career, Paul Heyman comes to the top of the ramp, and knowing the issues with both men, Earl Hebner and all of the referees in that locker room, they want nothing to do with this match. Paul Heyman personally is delighted to have this match at Bound for Glory, but the referees, they don't want to get involved with these two psychopaths. As a result, their match will have a guest referee. Lashley knows him very well, and the TNA fans know him very well, a man who held championship gold in this company, making a one-night return, the first ever world champion of TNA, the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock. So a huge announcement there, a massive addition to the Bobby Lashley Samoa Joe match. The history that I'm talking about between Lashley and Shamrock is that in 2010 they were scheduled to have an MMA fight. It fell through, but the idea here is that we're not only capitalising on any buzz that may have had. I'm not sure it had a great deal of buzz, but nonetheless there's something there between them. And also, if Earl Hebner was too soft of a referee for that match, then Ken Shamrock certainly isn't going to take any shit. He's not going to end this match unless it needs to be, and as a competitor himself, he knows exactly how to call this down the middle and what these two guys are capable of taking. Bobby Lashley struggling when going off script, but it is still a really good segment, like I said. Joe doing a very good job and gaining heat to the storyline, so I can have no complaints about that segment. We then get a pretty straightforward match. These two guys have had a lot of issues in the past, and we just sort of bringing that to a close. Mr. Anderson picking up a victory over Eric Young in 8 minutes and 24. It's not a handful of tights. He pokes EY in the eye just because he can. He doesn't need to. He just decides that he wants to. Great heat and decent wrestling. Anderson over Eric Young, and after the match, he looks up to the heavens, prompting the overhead microphone to come down as it always does. However, once the microphone is in the hands of the asshole, he throws it away. Anderson then leaves the ring, no words spoken, and heads up the ramp. Myro and Taz point out the fact that Anderson doesn't yet have a match on the Bound for Glory card and doesn't seem to have a natural opponent for the event. He's certainly the biggest name in the company who's not booked for the pay-per-view. I do have a plan for him, further playing into his current angle, which is that he is very, very discontented with the company, feels like he's been promised things that weren't followed through on. Kurt Angle then sits down with Mike Tenay, opening up about his feelings, specifically talking about the beginning of 2010. He felt backed into a corner, but he was told he was paranoid. Later, Paul Heyman would reveal that he was trying to do some psychological games, but Kurt Angle never doubted for a second how important he was to the vision. He wasn't motivated by any mind games though, that's all Paul Heyman trying to pat himself on the back. Kurt Angle has always motivated himself, and nothing will change that. Between his personal life and everything that happened with the dissolution of the Main Event Mafia, he's been looking for a fresh start for a long time, and 2010, the start of a new decade, was exactly that for him. Angle admits he found the young, hungry and aggressive branding to be a slap in the face, simply because he didn't buy the idea that it'd be so easy for these young guys to step into his shoes. No doubt they are talented, athletic and prodigious. The TNA locker room is the best in the world, but that doesn't mean that any of them can do what he does. Put simply, Kurt Angle believes that he is the greatest in the history of the sport. This is the arrogance that he has to have. He also says he has the gold medals to prove it. Nobody can dispute the fact that he is the greatest wrestler of all time, except maybe AJ Styles. AJ is cocky enough to believe that he's better than Kurt Angle, and that is what makes this a personal rivalry. So both of them, again, they're not guys who hate each other, but they're both finding ways. Just the reputation of the other guy is what makes it so important for them to prove themselves. He takes that very, very seriously, and on 10-10-10, he is ready to show AJ Styles exactly what that means. It's one thing for all these guys to be great and have all the potential in the world, but unlike Kurt Angle, they haven't been there and done it like he has. Another great segment and hopefully hype building interview with the World Heavyweight Champion, gaining heat to the storyline and advancing it. Kurt Angle doing well. I'm so happy with how this storyline's gone so far. Provided we avoid a massive dud of a segment next week, this is going to be probably the hottest storyline we've ever had going into any pay-per-view. Returning ahead of the final match of the night, Paul Heyman is shown in his office, speaking with Tara once again. Tara explains her issue, saying that nobody in the locker room wants to team with her. Paul Heyman takes a moment to process this, but says that's on them. He feels that Tara has earned the right to challenge for those Knockouts Tag Team Championships by beating both champs, so she needs to find somebody. Tara asks if Paul has listened to a word she just said, but he nods. Paul Heyman doesn't care who it is or where she gets them from. Just find somebody. From Tara's reaction, something appears to click, and she tells Paul that she may just have the perfect answer to this question. She's had a great idea, and she walks off. Clearly, someone in mind as her partner for Bound for Glory, gaining heat to the storyline once again, which is always a benefit of having Paul Heyman involved in them, as we go into a main event, which again is a fairly straightforward match. I think I've mentioned this before, but in the build-up to big pay-per-views, it's difficult to know what matches to do, because if somebody's in a marquee match or even booked on the pay-per-view, you don't really want them going into the show on the losing end. So I just thought a three-way here between guys who are in tag teams. It's one where, like we see here, Chris Sabin is pinned by Robert Roode, who picks up the victory with a payoff. It probably adds some heat to the storyline with a really good 72 rated main event, but moreover, it doesn't take too much away from the Motor City Machine Guns. After the match, Robert Roode stands tall and celebrates. As we return then for the final part of the show, Jeff Hardy making his way to the ring. Sting wants to talk to him, but Jeff himself has something to say. Sting comes down to the ring then. Without his face paint, we see in a different side, just to show that there's more of a personal side to this. It's not so much the character of Sting we're seeing, but the real guy who's talking to him. Jeff tells Sting that he appreciates his concern, but he doesn't need his help. Sting doesn't buy it, and he's telling Jeff that he can put on this front for people, but he can't lie to Sting. Sting then puts over Jeff Hardy as the great wrestler that he is, but he hasn't heard him once talk about Bound for Glory. He gets it. Sting himself once sat on the sidelines for 18 months while he considered his next move, but he doesn't think Jeff Hardy can afford to do that. Jeff, again, he wants Sting to drop this. He's going to come back in his own time, and he can't wait to entertain the fans again, but he needs to take this time. Sting tells Jeff that he isn't speaking to Sting right now, but to Steve Borden. I don't necessarily like going into the real name things, but it's already well established in TNA that it's Steve Borden behind Sting, so it's not exactly breaking kayfabe or anything like that. And Sting then talks about his personal struggles. These guys are unscripted here, so I'm not going to go into what Sting would say, but he doesn't want to see history repeat itself. There were reasons why things happened with Sting, and he doesn't want to see that repeated with Jeff Hardy. He wants Jeff to snap out of this and challenges him to a match at Bound for Glory. He wants to see the spark back. He wants to see Jeff Hardy get his mojo back, and how better to do it than against a man he says he idolised as a child. Jeff says nothing, so Sting starts to rough him up a little bit. Sting's kind of trying to goad him. Aren't I the guy who got you in the business? Haven't you said in the past that there'd be no Jeff Hardy without Sting? Well, where is that Jeff Hardy, the one who was motivated by what he saw Sting do? He eventually, with a mixture of his words and just sort of pushing and shoving him, he gets Jeff Hardy to say those words. He accepts. He'll return to the ring at Bound for Glory, and he'll face his childhood hero. So another huge match confirmed. Jeff Hardy, since showing up in no fit state to compete, he's done a really good job. Arguably, this storyline could have had segments in like the 80s and the 90s, but we've had the issue with Sting's momentum, so I think it's just a case of that. Hopefully, the final segment between them next week can help, but it does gain heat to the storyline. Both guys doing a really good job, and a huge match confirmed to end this episode of TNA Impact. A 78 rating, increasing our popularity in 16 regions, and I'll just put on screen explosion. Next week is the go home show to Bound for Glory. It's so great to finally be here. It's We're nearly 50 episodes in, a couple of matches from the Knockouts, a couple of matches from the X Division. When we can't fit everything onto Impact, it's good that we have a bunch of matches there that I think are really good matches, good storylines even advancing there. Like we say, Roderick Strong has his final decision about his membership of the New Age coming next week on the Go Home show. So many big segments, and I really think it's going to give even more hype into that huge pay-per-view. We've got a segment, like I said, between AJ Styles, Kurt Angle and Paul Heyman talking about the Iron Man match, but I'm not going to go on about it much more now. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back with the Go Home show very, very soon. The New Age is coming.